Have you ever noticed that some of the smartest people don't seem interested in being the loudest person in the room? While everyone else is chasing attention, they quietly step away. They decline invitations, spend weekends alone, and often seem perfectly comfortable without constant conversation. From the outside, it can look lonely, even strange. But what if it isn't loneliness at all? What if solitude is the very thing that allows their minds to work at their highest level? Psychology suggests that intelligence doesn't just change the way people think. It changes the way they experience the world. And once you understand what's happening beneath the surface, you may never look at solitude the same way again. Meet Daniel. At 34, Daniel was one of the most respected software architects at a fast-growing technology company in Seattle. His coworkers admired his ability to solve problems that left entire teams confused. Whenever a major project stalled, people naturally turned to him. He rarely raised his voice, rarely interrupted anyone, and almost never tried to prove how intelligent he was. Somehow, his calm presence spoke louder than words ever could. Yet there was one thing that puzzled almost everyone around him. Daniel almost always ate lunch alone. He politely declined after-work parties. He skipped weekend gatherings whenever he could. Even during company retreats, he preferred walking by himself instead of joining large groups. Before long, people began creating stories to explain his behavior. Some believed he was arrogant. Others assumed he disliked people. A few quietly wondered if something was wrong with him. Daniel heard the whispers, but he never defended himself. He understood something most people didn't. Being alone wasn't something he escaped to because he hated people. It was where his mind finally became quiet enough to think. Every morning, before the city fully woke up, Daniel sat on the balcony of his apartment with a notebook and a cup of black coffee. No phone, no music, no notifications, just silence. Those quiet mornings became the birthplace of his best ideas. While most people filled every empty moment with noise, Daniel protected silence as if it were his most valuable resource. Psychologists have long observed that highly intelligent people often process information more deeply than average. Their minds don't simply notice what happens. They analyze why it happens. They connect patterns others never see. They replay conversations, question assumptions, and mentally explore possibilities long after everyone else has moved on. That level of thinking requires something increasingly rare in today's world: mental space. Constant social interaction demands attention. Every conversation asks the brain to read facial expressions, interpret emotions, predict reactions, and respond appropriately. For many people, that stimulation feels exciting. For deeply analytical minds, however, it can become mentally exhausting. It's not because they dislike human connection. It's because their brains are already working overtime. One afternoon, Daniel joined a team brainstorming session to solve a difficult engineering problem. Ideas bounced around the room for nearly 2 hours. Everyone contributed. Everyone debated. Daniel barely spoke. When the meeting ended, some coworkers assumed he hadn't contributed because he had nothing valuable to say. They couldn't have been more wrong. That evening, after spending several quiet hours alone, Daniel returned the next morning with a complete solution that simplified months of complicated work into a system everyone could understand. People praised his brilliance. Very few understood where that breakthrough had actually come from. It wasn't born inside the meeting. It was born inside the silence that followed. For Daniel, solitude wasn't isolation. It was part of the thinking process. And that difference changes everything. This is one reason intelligent people often disappear after long periods of socializing. They're not upset. They're recovering. Another misconception is that intelligent people don't enjoy friendships. In reality, they often value relationships more deeply than average. The difference is quantity versus quality. While many people feel energized by large circles of acquaintances, intelligent people often invest their emotional energy into just a few meaningful relationships. They would rather spend 3 hours having one unforgettable conversation than attend 3 crowded parties filled with small talk. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a preference for depth over breadth. It's not that conversation is unimportant. It's that superficial conversation rarely satisfies a deeply curious mind. Daniel understood this better than anyone. His closest friend was Marcus, someone he had known since college. Sometimes months passed without them speaking. Yet when they finally met, the conversation immediately returned to ideas, philosophy, technology, history, and life. There was never pressure to impress one another, only genuine curiosity. Daniel often left those conversations feeling energized instead of exhausted. Because meaningful connection doesn't drain an intelligent mind, meaningless interaction often does. Another reason intelligent people seek solitude is something psychologists call cognitive restoration. The brain isn't designed to process constant stimulation forever. Silence gives the mind time to organize thoughts, strengthen memories, solve complex problems, and regulate emotions. Without those quiet moments, mental performance gradually declines. This explains why many inventors, scientists, writers, and entrepreneurs throughout history built daily routines around uninterrupted periods of solitude. Their greatest breakthroughs rarely happened in crowded rooms. They happened when distractions disappeared. Daniel noticed the same pattern in his own life. Whenever deadlines became overwhelming, coworkers stayed late discussing possible solutions. Daniel usually did the opposite. He went home. He cooked dinner. He took a quiet walk. Then he sat alone with nothing but a notebook. By morning, the answer often seemed obvious. His coworkers believed he possessed extraordinary intelligence. Daniel believed he had simply learned how to protect his thinking. That difference mattered, because intelligence alone isn't enough. A distracted mind cannot fully use its own potential. Modern life constantly rewards visibility. Social media encourages people to share every thought. Notifications compete for attention every few minutes. Being busy is often mistaken for being productive, but intelligent people gradually learn that attention is their most valuable resource. Every unnecessary distraction has a hidden cost. Every meaningless interruption steals a little more mental clarity. That's why many of them become protective of their time. From the outside, it may look antisocial. From the inside, it's simply survival. Of course, solitude has its dangers too. Too much isolation can slowly become avoidance. When intelligent people spend too much time inside their own minds, they sometimes begin overanalyzing everything. Simple decisions become complicated. Future possibilities become endless. Fear quietly disguises itself as preparation. Daniel experienced this himself. After receiving an offer to lead an international project, he spent weeks analyzing every possible outcome. He imagined success. He imagined failure. He imagined problems that hadn't happened. He kept searching for perfect certainty. Eventually, Marcus asked him one simple question. Asterisk, are you thinking because you're learning, or because you're afraid to decide? Asterisk. The question stayed with Daniel for days. He realized something uncomfortable. Even intelligence can become a trap when reflection turns into endless hesitation. True wisdom isn't knowing every possible outcome. It's recognizing the moment thinking must become action. That realization changed the way Daniel approached both work and life. For the first time, he understood that solitude should sharpen decisions, not replace them. Marcus's question stayed with Daniel long after their conversation ended. For years, he had believed that spending time alone automatically made every decision better. Now he understood that solitude was only a tool. Like any tool, it could build something remarkable or quietly become a place to hide. Over the next few months, Daniel made one small change. He still protected his quiet mornings. He still avoided unnecessary distractions. But he stopped waiting for absolute certainty before taking action. Whenever his mind produced endless what-if scenarios, he reminded himself of a simple rule. Asterisk, think deeply. Decide confidently. Move forward. Asterisk. The change seemed small. The results were enormous. His confidence grew, not because he had fewer doubts, but because he no longer expected to eliminate every doubt before acting. Ironically, the less time he spent trapped inside endless analysis, the clearer his thinking became. This reveals one of the biggest misconceptions about intelligent people. People assume intelligence means having more answers. In reality, intelligence often means living with more questions. Highly intelligent people tend to notice complexity where others see simplicity. They recognize hidden risks, multiple perspectives, and possibilities that most people never consider. That ability can be a gift. But without balance, it can also become a burden. The healthiest minds learn when to think deeply and when to stop thinking altogether. Psychologists often describe this as mental flexibility, the ability to shift between reflection and action, between analysis and experience, between solitude and connection. Daniel finally understood why solitude had always mattered so much to him. It wasn't because people exhausted him. It wasn't because he believed he was different. It was because silence gave his mind room to organize itself. It allowed ideas to settle. It separated important thoughts from meaningless noise. In a world constantly demanding attention, solitude became the place where his attention returned to what truly mattered. But he also realized something equally important. Life cannot be fully understood from a quiet room alone. Some lessons only appear through conversations. Some opportunities only exist when we meet new people. Some of the greatest moments of life begin by stepping outside our comfort zone. True intelligence isn't choosing solitude over people. It's knowing when each one serves you best. The smartest people aren't always the ones who spend the most time alone. They're the ones who know why they're alone. If solitude helps you grow, think clearly, and become a better person, it becomes one of the greatest investments you can make. But if it slowly turns into fear, avoidance, or isolation, it quietly becomes a prison built by your own mind. The difference isn't the amount of time you spend alone. The difference is what that time does to you. So the next time you see someone quietly walking alone, reading in a cafe, skipping a noisy party, or simply enjoying their own company, don't be too quick to assume they're lonely. They may be doing something far more valuable. They may be protecting the one resource that shapes every decision they'll ever make: their mind. If this video changed the way you think about solitude, let us know in the comments. Do you feel recharged after spending time alone, or do you gain energy from being around people? We'd love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday human behavior, subscribe to Psychology Unlocked for more original psychology stories and insights every week. Because sometimes, understanding the mind changes the way you live.